Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Hey, today I'm going to get back on the RM shocks. I think this is going to take a while to get through. Today we're going to get started on those again. We've already got one video where we took it all apart and just kind of looked at it and see what we needed to do. I've got some parts. I don't know whether I've got everything I need, but we're going to get started. First thing I want to do is work on the new rod. I've got to drill some passages for the dampening, and we've got to trim down and thread, and we'll do all that before we weld the new piece onto the old eyelet. So let me get you over here at the bench and I'll show you what we're up to. Okay guys, here's the old one. And what we've got to do is install a new one, but we've got to pretty much make the new one before we install it, and the installation will be welding it to the eyelet here. But like I said, I'm not losing anything by doing anything to these shocks, because these will never hold a seal this way. This is the good one. The other one is a lot worse. So I've got some new chrome plated rod, and what we've got is on this end, we've got a 3mm hole that needs to be drilled up to the tape line there, and we've got to thread this in and turn this down, and then we've got to drill a 1.5mm. We'll start with we'll probably start with the 1.5mm, drill through to the 3mm hole, and then come back and with the 3mm hole just do a kind of a recess cut here down to it. We need to turn this step down, turn this step down, and then thread it. And once we get that, we'll cut it to length and weld it up here. So let me get you over at the lathe here and we'll get started on this. All right, so we've got our new rod zeroed out here, and I've got some aluminum kind of jaw covers here. The thing with this chrome plated rod is it will slip very easily in the jaws. The aluminum actually helps it not spin. So I've got this pretty good there. We just need to make sure we're pretty close. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and drill my hole up the middle of it. So let me get set up to do that. Okay, I just trimmed off a little bit of this. I just wanted to see how it was going to cut. Looks like we're going to be all right with carbide on that. And we'll just go ahead and use a starter bit here, and we'll start that hole in the end. The rod itself isn't very hard. It's just the chrome plating on top. So once you get past that, we shouldn't have any trouble. All right, let's see if we can get this to go on through here. Okay, we've got our first cut right about there, and we're going to 451, I believe is the happy number there. That's this one right here. That's where our other hole is going to go. Yeah, about 452 or so in diameter. And we're going to go up to the line there. It's soft enough after you get past the chrome there, but you can hear it kind of squeaking. I'm going to take that blue line out. I can always trim off the bottom a little bit. I got plenty to work with here. All right, there we go. Just see if we're about 1225 in length. Yeah, we're good there. Okay, went just a little bit further, and that's okay. That way we can trim it off on the end if we need to. And we're going to 451. That's 491. Still pretty hard there. I had to change to a different tool holder to get a little different rake on it. Yeah, that's a lot smoother. I was just not cutting at all with the other one. And let's see where we're at here. 466. Okay, so 451, I got 451.5. We'll just leave her there. Okay, I've got 332 for, so basically 20 thousandths is where we've got to go to use a 3/8 24, 3/8 24. Yeah, 0.332. So I'll take a little over 10 here. Okay, I'm still wrong. Should be 3/8, so 375. Yeah, so we're at about 410 now. So 25 thousandths. So let me see if I can get this right. Okay, we're on size there, so. All right. Get this started here. I think that'll work. Just try to keep that pushing against it there until I get it started. I couldn't find that 9mm bolt or nut. I could use the one I have, but you know, what are you going to do? It's just an odd size. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, it looks okay. So we'll keep going. Don't have to go but about halfway, it looks like. Okay, this is the what I'm calling a 9mm. I think it is, because we're it's about 886, 889 across the threads there. And this, it uses what I refer to as a jam nut, which is the thin one. I'm going to have to find one for the 3/8, but here's the regular nut, regular 3/8 nut, and they're just almost the same size. So if we've got clearance issues, I think it'll work. We're about 1388mm across the flat on the 9mm. And 1412 on the 3/8. So I could make these if I need to be thinner. That's a good fit on the thread. And this is how we were on the other one. So we were about there's 9mm up there, 896, and we're at 952 on this one. I think it's going to work. I haven't foreseen any problems right now anyway. We'll have to see when we start fitting things together. Let me just take off the burrs there. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a good fit on that. So I'll see if I can find a jam nut. And the other thing that we're going to need is we've got to be able to get this over it to get the seal. Okay, so that's a good fit there. So that's going to get our seal over. Okay, I think we're done here. We need to pull it out, and we'll see about drilling the hole going the other way there. So this one here will be located up here somewhere. So that's our next task. Okay, so I think we're done here. at least for now. So we got one end kind of done. We just need our other hole up here. Okay, so here's our new one compared to the old one. So we're just about where we ought to be on this one. So it'll get cut off probably right here in front of this washer. That was spun onto there to weld it probably. I'm not going to be able to do that. Wish I could, but I just don't think I can. So I'll probably have to set this up in the lathe and then spot it and then take it out and TIG weld it after I prepare the both ends there. And of course I'm going to have to cut it off right about up here. So I think I'll go ahead and get the other hole right here. And those holes seem to be, it's not a real necessary, it looks like, to have them lined up. This one here is kind of pointing this way, and this one is kind of pointing that way a little bit. If I've got the shock mounts located like that. So I think all they do is when you turn them, I think there's 3 positions where you can change the dampening. So we'll go ahead and get this one drilled, our new one. And of course this piece goes on there too. So I'll be cleaning this up and we'll reinstall that, and we'll make this piece here. I had to destroy this one to figure out how to get the shocks apart, which, like I said, is no big deal because they're no good anyway. But it's just a spacer that goes right here, just like this one does. I really thought there was probably a way to fasten it, unfasten it, whatever under there, but it wasn't. Just appears to be a spacer. So I'll make one of those before we slide all this together. Okay, let's get centered up on this thing. And we'll center out up here. Half on the Y, and we'll just move that. Yeah, close enough. All right, so there's where we ended up. So this one is 1.5 millimeter. We'll go down to meet that hole we drilled up the center. There it is. Okay, there's our two. This is the new one here. So I think we're in good shape on that end. And that, of course, that intersected with the hole on this end. Okay, back over to the lathe here. We're going to cut it to length. Thanks, guys. Don't forget that thumbs up. Sure hope it's long enough. Okay, I've been thinking about this, how I want to fasten it. And I think what I'm going to do is make this piece that I cut off, otherwise this piece right here, and I'm going to make that with the 1/2 inch inside, and I'm going to cut this. I think I'm going to thread this piece here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and line this up, get it inside. Now wait a minute. Yeah, I'm actually going to make this spacer, then I'm going to weld it right here to this piece, but I kind of want to thread it here. So I need to do all that before I put it together. And then this piece here will slide up on it. But I think that's what I want to do. I want to thread this piece here, and it will thread into this piece. But that means I've got to cut threads here, and I'm not sure I can do that with I just don't know, because I've got to cut it. I can't cut it down. Well, yeah, I can. I can cut it down to 3/8. It's not going to matter. I just can't do 1/2 inch because I don't think I can thread over this chrome, and you'd have to thread it now. Let me think about this a minute. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the spacer, and then I'm going to thread it to 7/16. So that's between the 3/8 and the 1/2. So that gives it a little bit better, or a bigger stop up there. And I'll just do that to 7/16 20. So we have a few more threads there. And like I say, this piece here will be welded on. And then this, the rod, we'll cut down here, thread it, and then run it into the, and I've got a taper tap and a bottom tap here, so I can do that. Of course, I think what I'll do is I'll thread that before I weld it on. So it'll just be welded to this nut, or to this kind of washer affair right here. So then that the shaft gets threaded into it. Then this collar goes on there, and then the bumper goes up against it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, back over to the lathe. We got that put back in, trued up. Okay, down to 43.75. Okay, we're at 43.75. We'll just take and give that a little bit of a help there. All right, let's see if we can get this done. Kind of close work there, but I think we can get her done. Just want to look at the threads, see how we're starting. Yep, looks good. Let me blow that out and we'll continue. Okay, it's looking pretty good there. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll thread that other end, and when we put it together, we'll put it together with Loctite. So that I believe that'll work. Okay, that's kind of an odd size up there. It's let me get you a little higher here so you can see. Yeah, it's 0.778, so it's bigger than 3/4. So I'm going to have to use some inch stock to get to that. So I'll go ahead and I'll drill the inside first, get it as close as I can, and then we'll take off the outside. I think that'll do. Nothing like a brand new tap. Of course, it'd be all right if I could get it lined up. There we go. So I'm threading two of them here. I'll be cutting them after I get them completely made. And this is our bottom tap. I think I've got it pretty close there, but if I need to finish the thread after I get it cut apart, I can do that. Okay, I think that'll do her. Thanks guys, don't forget that thumbs up. Okay, we're turning down the nut portion that is going to go at the top. That's where this screws in here. So I've got to get down to about 7 or 0.777, I think it is. So that's what we're doing now. This will be the part that gets welded to the this portion here. Once we cut the stud off, then it'll get welded right here to this washer. That's the plan. Okay, these are going to be 0.400 each, and we just go up from the very tip here, the 400, and then the width of the blade, which is 0.087. So we'll cut her off right there, and then we'll cut another one after that. Take the burr off of that before it comes off. Let's take the burr out of that. Okay, time to get the other one. All right, working on the other end now. This is the end that's going to go towards the top. So we'll cut this old shaft off right below this washer, and then the new shaft will, or the new, what we'll do is we'll weld this piece that I've threaded to the washer. It's more than a washer, it's a pretty thick piece. And what we're going to do now on this one is thread this end so that it will thread into this piece. And we'll have enough room on there to put a jam nut on the back side of it. That's the plan. So we're looking pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and put me a center in this end so I can have a center in there when I thread it. That's how long the threads are going to be. Okay, we're going for 43.75 and we're at 475 right now. So we've got a little bit to take off there. That should be our thread size. So we'll press on and take off some more here. This should be pretty close. Okay, I've got an issue here. You know, I do this just about every time I thread. I don't know why I don't get a finer point live center. But you can see here where I'm running into my center right here with the tool bit, and I'm not into the work yet. So what I'm going to try to do is just use very minimal pressure and try to do it without the center. It's not right, but that's the way it is. All right, let me get some contrast on there. We'll see, it might work. Okay, I'm going to take it slow here, slow and easy. I don't do it every day. I went a little too far there. I'm wanting to keep this engaged. I'll slow it down a little bit more. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to check, see if my thread looks good. We're going for 20. Yeah, looks good. So I think we're on the right track there. Okay, let's take another couple thou here. Try not to run into it this time. There's a spring pass on that one. It's a little bit snug up there. Of course, this nut probably isn't the best. That's kind of a strange size, and that's, let me see if I can find a better nut. Okay, I just went and got the piece that is going to go on there. Now. Okay, looks good. So I believe we're done there. Okay, I know somebody was out there yelling at me saying you can't do that unless you're going to drill all those dampening parts out, and they would be right. Took me a little while to figure it out. I did make one, so I'm having to remake that one. But I was going to go to 3/8 here, and I can't do it. All this stuff here would, this one wouldn't. This one slides up here, so that's the same size. But everything that went this way down has to be the 9mm, or it's just not going to work. I was trying not to have to change the gear on my lathe so I could cut metric threads, but I'm just going to have to. This is 9mm 125, and that's what it's got to be on this one. Now the other end that I threaded to 7/16, that one's okay. That's no problem because we're making both parts of it. If you remember right, this is the piece that gets welded on, and then this screws into it there. So we're okay on that end. But the other end, big boo-boo. So this one here I'm redoing. Actually, I think I might be able to redo the one I did. Depends on what the threads look like after I take it down. Yeah, we'll just see on that one, because I'll have to, I don't know, we'll have to see. But all the washers and everything go on to this 9mm portion of the shaft, except for this piece that goes right there, and that's 450. Now I'm still, I know, but they didn't teach metric when I went to school, not in this country. So I know you guys get a little frustrated with me, but that's just the way it is. I'm too old a dog to change now. So I still convert everything, but I made a boo-boo here, and I've got to have 9mm there, so I've got to reuse those nuts, which is no problem. They're just fine. But I've got to thread this to 9/125. Okay guys, run into an issue. My lathe will not thread 1.25 pitch, among others. It'll do 1.5, and I've done those before, but I just can't. I did find some gears on eBay, so I ordered up a set of gears where I can convert it over to do it. Wasn't too expensive, but at least I'll be able to do it from here forward. But in the meantime, I ordered a 9mm 125 tap and die from Amazon. Not the best stuff in the world, but I'm hoping that it'll at least thread 2 shafts. and they only get about 8 threads on each one. So I'm hoping for the best, but I ran into another problem. I don't have a handle for the die. So before I can proceed, I'm going to have to make a tap handle or a die handle in order to do it. It's a round one. I think it's about 1 inch in diameter, and I just don't have those. All my small ones are hexagon, and all my round ones are like 2 inch or bigger. So it just, just takes a little extra time. This is just what you have to go through when you're doing things like this. It's never as simple as you may think. So let me get you over here at the bench and I'll show you what my dilemma is and what we're going to do to fix it. Okay. It took me about a week to get this. I ordered it quite a while ago, and it was the only place I could find one that I thought I could get in any reasonable amount of time. It's odd size, 9mm 125, and they offered it in a set for, I think it was 14 bucks or something like that. And of course, here's my round die, or my round holder, and other than that I've got square ones. Fella might be able to hold it with that, I don't know. It's got a hole in it. I think, this is not something new to me. Here's one that I had to make for this, because I had none of these. This was a 24mm. I think I've got a couple other like this, bigger ones. So I had to make one out of some tubing and some steel square tubing here. So that's what we'll do. I've got a piece of 4130 here that actually is pretty close already right here. So I'll just I'll put this in, and we'll continue this bore and take a little more out, and then drill it for a set screw and weld on a couple handles, and we should be back in business. It's just, this is just the kind of stuff that you run into when you're trying to work on non-conventional things, which seems to be a lot these days. The thing that really makes me the maddest is the fact that I've got to take my work out of the lathe in order to build the tool, and then I've got to put the work back in the lathe and finish the threading on it. So, it's one thing or the other. That's just the way it works. I spent a couple hours last night. The book for the lathe is really hard to understand. It's a Taiwanese machine, and it just isn't the easiest to read. And I tried getting the threads for it, and then I finally went looking. I tried different. I have one other gear, and I tried it in 2 different locations, and it just wouldn't do it. I could do one in 1.5 pitch and some others, but not 1.25. And most of these Japanese motorcycles have 1.25. And the other problem is it's a 9mm. I've never seen a 9mm. I don't know. I didn't. The only place that I could even find one was Amazon, and of course it's a foreign-made thing. But anyhow, that's about all I got left to do is just put this many threads on it. And if I can't do it, it's not as critical as the other end. If this is a little bit off one way or the other, all it does is hold the dampening pack on, all this stuff. So, you slide all this on, it's all centered by here and here. So all you have is just a nut on the back of it to hold it on. So if it's off a little ways or something like that, which usually happens when you're using a die, it takes the path of least resistance. So if it's the grain of the metal is off one way or something, it's going to follow it. But anyhow, it's not a player. As long as we can get threads on there, that's all we need. That's all I've had to do is I redid this end, and I've still got to drill the hole here, and I've already got it center punched, ready to go. So we'll get to that, and we'll come back, put it back in there, and tidy up those threads. I'm hoping I can take this edge off and that'll fit just about in there, and I can just bore that back a little bit farther. Let's see if that's going to be that way. It's almost a little loose, but I think it'll be all right. I just need to bore it back a little bit, put a set screw in to fit into one of the dimples, and that should hold it. And then we can just fire up the welder and weld a couple handles on it. I think I should have cut back a little bit further. Okay, going through my set screw drawer here and found what I think will work. Yeah, okay. No, I think it'll be all right. Okay, so we'll get that set in there, and it's wide enough to hold 2 or 3 threads there, so it should be good. 1024. Okay. Thanks, guys. Don't forget that thumbs up. Yeah, I think that'll work. Find us something to weld on there for handles. All right, got our tool made. Let's see if we can get some threads on this thing. These are the ones that came off of it. Yeah, looks good. I've just never seen a 9mm in any of my travels with motorcycles. Only a 9mm wrench once or twice, but never a 9mm bolt. There's a shaft. The only thing I need to do is do the drill through here. I have to redo that. So we'll go over and get that done. It needs to be pretty good in line because it's got to line up with the holes, the dampening holes. I believe we got it now. Okay, this again is a 1.5mm. And we've got to go in and hit the hole that we drilled this way. There we go. Okay, so I need to go a little ways down, not very far, with the 3mm now. This looks like maybe about halfway. Okay. Stop right there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and sever this eyelet up here because we're going to need that. A little stub I got to get rid of there. File will take care of that. And we need to ream this to the 1/2 inch. It's not very much, about 6/1000. There you go. Now that should go on our new shaft. Okay guys, I think this is going to be a long video. I just had I had issues, things I didn't think about, and things like that when you're trying to go at a project like this, they're always going to come up. And you know, I was just trying to get away from you know, not being able to put the proper threads, and on the other end I had issues too. So I just had a lot of problems here, but these are the things that you have to go through when you're doing a project like this. You can't think of everything. Some people I'm sure would have thought about a lot more than I did, but you know, you ran into these problems and then you have to deal with them. So you just adapt and overcome. Now, this is the old one, and this is our new one, of course. And you see the length, and you see that we've got threads on the new one, and that's how we're going to attach the new one. We've got a jam nut, and I did 7/16 on this end. It's just a little bit under half. And then we threaded this piece, and that goes on just like that. So that gives us pretty much flush right there, and we can take up a little of adjustment right here. This is going to be welded to this piece right here at the washer, and this piece here, I'm going to have to remove most of this in order to make room for the nut, the jam nut. I think it's the jam nut's important to have. And of course, if you remember right, we used 1/2 inch shaft instead of 12.5 millimeter. And there's only about 6/1000 difference. This is about 6/1000 bigger. Gives us a little strength, I suppose, but for the most part, you might think, well, what about the seals? Seals they easily give 6/1000. There's not going to be a problem with seals. And we had to ream the bushing in this to get onto the shaft, and we also had to ream this piece. Like I say, most of that will go away. Because if I don't take that off, there's, you know, one of two things have to happen. Either I remove part of this, or most of it probably, the width of the nut, or I remove the nut and just use Loctite. Either or, you know, and another thing I could do is drill it and pin it. But I really don't think that's going to move on me, especially with grade A Loctite on it. And then once we've got that, we've got, then our bumper goes on. And that goes down into here. And then of course the seal head, you've got this seal here that I had to take off to ream this. So that'll go on. And then the seal head itself. I had to make this tool in order to do all this, so you don't tear up your seal. I probably don't need it for that, but anyhow, that goes on there next. And then you get that. And then you get all this stuff here. It's going to go this way onto the end of it, right to here. And then your nut's going to go on that we just did the threads on. And so far, what I can tell, and I've still got to put the snap ring groove in. I've got to kind of trim down the snap ring insert, the one I'm going to use for that. It's a little bit wide, and I've done some research on that. It does get a square hole or a square groove, just like an O-ring. So the only thing we need to do is grind some of the clearance from the side here. I think, let's see, my groove, these are 70 thousandths, 70 and a half. So from what I understand, you make the groove 1/3 the depth of what the diameter of the retaining ring is. So let's see, what is that, about 23 thousandths? So that's how deep it'll be. And it's supposed to be just a little bit wider, not very much. But being a square groove, that way this will dig in before it'll slip over. And of course, that's going to go right here. This little groove right here, once this thing is installed, then it blocks it so it can't come back up. So you're going to push that down into the tube here with the O-ring on it here, and then you'll put the snap ring in, retaining ring, and then pull it back up. So the next time you see this project, we're going to be working on this piece, I think. I think we're in pretty good shape on this one. From what I can tell, we may be 8 or 10 thousandths, no, I'm sorry, 8 or 10 millimeter shorter than stock. And that's just because of this is different, how far I'm going to have to put it into here. And it's just, a lot of what we're having to do to get this to fit. I think we're going to be at, it's just going to be a few millimeter shorter. And it shouldn't matter that much. Sure shouldn't to me anyway. I'm not going to bottom them probably. But anyhow, these projects they're more fun to do than they are, the end product really. But we made a big difference from this. This would have never held a seal. This, of course, will be for doing our groove. And this will get welded to here. And when I drilled this hole, this is something you've got to watch. I'm going to leave most of that on there. This is the piece I need. You see these, I know you can't see down in them. There's the outside looks the same, but there's smaller holes, orifices in the bottom, and those have to line up with this right here. So what I was able to do is with an awl, let's see here if I can find it real quick. You can take, I just took the biggest one, that one right there, and you can, this actually comes into it a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. It actually, you should be able to see it inside there. And I was just able to put this on this piece here and then put that, stick it through it and just tap it on the end. And I left my mark so I could get in there with a center punch and punch it, because those have to line up with that hole right there. It'll go that way, and that's so you can adjust the dampening on your shock there. But I think that's just about it. Like I say, I ran into a few problems along the way, but just like anything else, you have to deal with them if you want to do anything like this. So that's what we did. I pretty much ruined one shaft, and that's you know, I think that gave about $5 and change for those. So it's just one of those things that happens. And now I've got the other one, at least one end of it made. Here's the other one that we've got to replace. And I've got this one threaded on this end. So we've still got to do this end and get all of it, you know, get the length right and all that. But I think we're in good shape here. This is going to work for us. Now on this end, I've got the springs and the balls here in a little bag. I'm not going to put those in right now, but the way this stuff goes on, you've got a little washer right here, and here's your detents for the ball as you turn to adjust your dampening here. So you've got a little shim there, that's going to go on. I think I got a burr. Yeah, I do. I see it right there. But that's going to go on, and then this plate. Yeah, I got to get rid of that burr. Okay, got that on. And then your spring and ball go right here to go into that detent, and that goes on. Then you've got a star washer. It's going to go this way. Then you've got all this spring pack here. You got some with little I don't know what you'd call that. It's probably to space this when it's inside the big washers. You've got another one here. All that goes on. Then you've got all these, and they're going to go on, and those kind of go in. See that, how it goes inside it there? And then this piece, then your nut. Now this is your piston ring, and what I'm going to do, there's an O-ring under there, and I'm going to replace the O-ring so it'll be, because that's what gives it the pressure to hold against the cylinder portion here. So I'll replace that. And you know, I may have to cut this down a little bit. I'm not sure how long those were. They were all gone in my case. Matter of fact, I didn't think they even came on them, but I had some people tell me that they did. This is what I could find, so if it's too long, then I need to, I'll have to do something with that. But that's pretty much our shaft. And here, you will have this piece that goes on there before we put it all together. But we've still got to get the groove in this. So progress is being made. Okay guys, there you have it. Sorry for the length on this one, but we had a lot to do and I got to redo a lot of it. So you just, little things that come up along the way, you know, oh man, I should have thought about that. You know, I was just trying to use SAE fasteners because I could single point turn those. And when I got to the 125, the 1.25 pitch on the 9mm that I didn't have a tap and die for, you know, so I thought, well, as long as I get it to the right diameter, I can go ahead and cut that 9mm thread. But I can't. My lathe will just will not cut it. I need some other gears, and I was able to find some on eBay. There's about 6 other gears that you can get for this lathe and many others like it that allows you to cut just about any pitch that you want. I was able to, I know I've done 1.5 pitch and maybe some others, you know, bigger ones, but I just, I've never tried the 125 obviously because I couldn't do it. And you know, originally I cut the top here, and I tried to do it with a die, and it was too crooked. A lot of times those dies just want to go their own way. It's not a real good thing to try on these small things like this. But on the end, all I'm doing is holding that piece on. As long as this part is straight, everything else will be okay. It's just doing is holding the shim pack on to the end of the rod. So if I'm off a little there, you know, gee whiz. But anyhow, that's just what you have to do when you're doing projects like this. You just, the old Marine Corps thing, adapt and overcome. And that's what we did. And you got to see me do it wrong and redo it and do it again. You know, so that's just how it works. Almost anything that I do, there's always something that pops up. Some of it is more simple than other things. But this one wasn't real simple, and it was very time consuming. But anyhow, hey, thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.